Okay, so it's been weeks probably since natapos natin yung bike build project for my wife. Let's talk about how we came up with this bike design for my wife with zero mileage. Zero mileage means my wife is not a biker. She's never ridden a road bike before and she's not into cycling. Pero years after I started into sports lifestyle, one of the probably bonus that I received as a husband is my wife started to see the benefits of joining me in this sports lifestyle. So let's cover in this part 3 session of our bike build the story behind how my wife, myself, Coach Lian came up with this geometry, with this build for who is going to be doing cycling from scratch on a road bike. So basically, Coach has been discussing about different discussions about biomimicry, which I will be putting below. It's one of the process that we use to make the decision, to come up with the decision on how this will be developed. And then there's this part of biomechanics and bike fitting. How we're going to be connecting all those stuff. In terms of the biomimicry, we will not be covering that in detail here. Instead, what I will do is I will just be putting the link below so that you can watch how Cruise Control discuss about biomimicry. Now, if we focus mainly on this bike, para we can just go straight to the point kasi I know that you're busy as well. If you will notice, the first thing that you will notice with my wife bike, and I keep on saying she has zero experience, is what's this thing about this bike is you can see that it is slam. There's no spacer. So there's no spacer between the head tube, the top tube, and the handlebar. The reason why we managed to achieve this is right after the biomimicry, the biomechanics, and the measurements of my wife, Cruise Control was able to now design a geometry of the frame that will allow her to have this kind of setup. So basically, based on the measurements, we can now define the top tube length. The top tube length will give us that opportunity to play around with how the handlebar will now look like. So if you will notice, the head tube of this bike is much more taller compared to other bikes. Probably if you have a super bike, you will notice that your head tube is shorter. However, you will notice that when you get the bike from the distributor, you will also get spacers. So that's Cruise Control, Walser addressing this. So in order for us not to use spacers anymore is that the head tube has already been defined according to how my wife will ride. So since I mentioned how my wife will ride, let's discuss that in a little bit of detail. So my wife, basically she's not into racing. Now, we basically develop a bike that will mainly provide her the ability to enjoy cycling, which means instead of putting her on a race bike, we put her on on an upright position bike. Kaya this was designed like this, the top tube, so that when the biker is using this, when the person is using this, she or he can now focus more on just looking at the road. And that is the main idea why it was built like this. It was mainly specifically for a biker to have the ability to focus more on looking at the road without having neck pain. And with the ability to reaching the hoods, the handlebars, without having back pain. Kasi the top tube was designed specifically for the geometry or for the measurement of the biker who will be using this. And then this head tube is specifically for a biking experience, specifically focused on seeing the road. More on upright, more on relax. And that would be the purpose of this bike. This is the main reason, or this is a very important part of creating a bike. You need to know how the biker, how the person will use the bike. So that is a very important part in decision making when creating the bike. So basically, if the biker or if the buyer is into racing, is into multisport, then probably you have to consider a more aggressive bike. Alternatively, if the person is more of, I just wanted to enjoy something, instead of us putting that person in an aggressive bike, we will put that person in a bike that is more relaxed. So that's basically the idea on how this geometry was designed. So hopefully that portion gives you an idea how we basically design, plan, and develop this frame. Now, let's move on to the components. Components-wise, I think now that we have the access to the knowledge of biomimicry, biomechanics, ability to design and develop the frame, and what's connected about this is basically how can you now build a bike that will help you develop something which is very, very cost efficient. So let's now discuss cost efficiency. When we built this bike, we use our stock knowledge about everything we've learned in the CRZ program. Having the appreciation about biomechanics and sizing and how we ride is we basically came up with a build that will allow us to pre-select specific parts for this. So majority of the parts from this bike is very common. So the saddle is actually from my old bike. So this portion is something that I already saved because it's from my old bike. And then basically the handlebar, which is 90 by 38, is from my old bike as well. So those two is already something that I cost save. Now, to put a stress further is the wheel sets is actually the Reynolds wheel set from my old Cannondale System 6. So basically, we just repurpose everything. And since my height is 5'4" and my wife is 5'6", we basically almost have the same measurements in terms of the handlebar, the saddle, and we all know that the wheel sets are very, very standardized. The only thing that we purchase in this bike is the group set. Pero I can still probably say that we save some money sa group set. Kasi the reason why you notice that we use a Di2 105 12-speed Shimano is what happened is the first bike of my wife was using the Ultegra mechanical 11-speed. And unfortunately, during one of the trainings before I handed it over to my wife, I had an accident. So yung left STI is having an issue. And when I started checking and sourcing if I can just replace it, unfortunately, it's gonna cost me $400 to $500. Fortunately, while we are researching on how we can build this bike, I saw someone from Malaysia who is a builder, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to finish his build. So I was able to convince him to just sell the unused Di2 group set to me at a very reasonable price. And I believe I was able to get the group set for 51,000 pesos only after conversion. So, and that is why we slapped this bike with this Di2 105 Ultegra. Question, do my wife really needs 12 speed? The answer is no. Definitely, she can do 10, 9, and 11. But it's just that there is an opportunity for us to get it. Why not, diba? Kasi instead of me buying an STI, kung konti lang naman difference, why not upgrade to a Di2 so that at least it's more comfortable as well when shifting. So, basically, yun yung build natin sa bike na to. In a nutshell, the reason why I wanted to share how to cost save when building a bike is we use our knowledge the past few years, the biomechanics knowledge, the training that we have in the CRZ program to come up with this build. Now, instead of us buying a new bike from a branded store and basically undergoing bike fitting, and then basically if the bike fitter tells us that, hey, you have the wrong sizes of parts, we have to buy again. What makes this very special is when you have that knowledge about biomechanics, about biomimicry, about the measurements, about how you want it to ride, is you can now step back and now develop something based on what you know. So which means you can now define the frame based up to the top tube level. You can make it shorter, longer based on the measurement. And then before you even build the bike, you can pre-select all the components. So, which means the moment that you build the bike, it's already fit. Probably up to 80 to 90%. The remaining 10% would be the final touches wherein we have to allow the biker to sit on the bike, fill the bike, and do the last changes just to make sure that everything works well. And hopefully that basically gives you an idea on how we decide, how we make decision in building such kind of titanium frame for a non-experienced biker. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we can exchange information. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below, and I'll see you again.
Pull the levers downward. I'm gonna start counting down, okay? On my cue. Ready, set, go. 5, come on. 4, 3, 2, done. Recover. Not even a biker. That's it. Very good, huh? Approved? Okay. Okay. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much again for watching our episode. It was low-key, but it was just a very simple discussion on, number one, how do we design made-to-measure bikes that makes it totally different from what the industry is doing right now. To summarize, we don't just measure your height, your inseam. That's very basic. The most important part is that when you do a made-to-measure project, a person, just like Jeng, who's not even a biker, no experience, starts to look like that on day one. She just saved a lot of time. Time is a currency that you cannot get back. Yeah, perhaps money, you can earn it, but time is something that you cannot. As she starts doing this now, every single time she bikes, what's gonna happen is she's now gonna develop the proper muscles. She doesn't have to do mega miles anymore. She can just do a 20-kilometer ride, a 15-kilometer ride a day, but it's the same thing, the same effect as if she went to the gym. Because all the muscle groups that she needs to develop, specific for cycling, can now be, you can say, activated. What happens then is that your recovery is so much faster. Your heart rate is so much lower. Again, what's the bottom line? She becomes happier biking every day. Good. Thank you very much.